Hi, I'm Amy. This is House of Nash Eats, and today we are making triple chocolate scones. These are so good for brunches, afternoon snacks, special treats for a party. You're gonna love them. Okay, so we're going to start out our chocolate scones with some all-purpose flour, and we're going to add some Dutch processed cocoa powder. Now, I like using Dutch process for this because it's a darker chocolate flavor, and I really like emphasizing the dark chocolate in these scones. And then I'm going to do some granulated sugar, some baking powder, baking soda, and some salt. And I'll leave a link below to the recipe with all the ingredient measurements for you. Then we're gonna whisk that all together. So with scones, it's really important that you don't over mix the scone dough when you're making it. So you want to really combine all of these first so that once you add the wet ingredients to the dry ingredients, it all mixes together quickly and evenly and you don't overwork it. Okay, so this is where we're going to add our cold butter. And it's really important for scones that your butter is cold. So I like to freeze mine and then grate it, or I'll even grate it and then freeze it just so it's really, really cold. Let me grab that. Okay, so I've got my cold grated butter. I'm just going to add that all to these dry ingredients. And then you could crumble this together by hand, but I've got this handy dandy little pastry cutter and it really helps just cut that butter in and evenly distributes the fat with all of the flour and cocoa powder, all the other ingredients. So scones are kind of a lot like what we think of as biscuits in America, but these chocolate scones are kind of almost like a brownie version of it. Okay, so once you have your cold butter cut into your flour, we're going to add our chocolate chips. And this is a really great time to be creative. And you could add peanut butter chips, mint chips, white chocolate chips. You could even add some chopped fruit like strawberries or raspberries just to change up the flavor of your scones and have fun with it. So we're going to toss these in the flour just so they're coated and evenly distributed before we add our wet ingredients. Okay, so now we're going to work on our wet ingredients. So this is a chance to use cold ingredients, right? Super important for scones. So I've got 1 cold egg. And I'm just going to whisk that with a fork just to break it up. We want to mix all of this right now before we add it to our scone dough. Okay, once that's beaten, we'll add our vanilla extract and our cold milk. Okay, give that just a little stir to mix it up. Okay, now we're going to add this to our scone dough. So we're just going to pour this all in at once, just like that. And then I like using a spatula to mix this together so I don't overwork my dough. You don't want to whisk it or use an electric mixer. This is a good one to do by hand. We're just going to kind of stir this around just until things start coming together and combining. It's okay for this to be kind of a shaggy dough where not all of the liquid has been absorbed by the flour just yet. Okay, so when it's about like this, where you still see some dry ingredients that aren't fully combined, I like to grab a piece of parchment paper and I'm just going to dump our dough out onto the parchment paper. Okay, and if you're familiar with making biscuits, it's the same kind of technique. We're just gonna push these together, fold it together till it like really holds into one clump so it's not falling apart when we shape our scones. Okay, just like that. This looks great. You can still see a little bit of the dry ingredients, but it's fine. So now I've got a bench scraper. You could use a sharp knife, and I'm just going to divide this in half. This recipe makes 12 scones. So I'm gonna work with half of my dough at a time. And if the dough is really sticky, you can use a little bit of extra flour to just sprinkle on top and on the bottom. Okay, and I'm just going to kind of pat this into a disc. Okay, so this is about a 6-inch circle, maybe a little bit bigger, and I've already prepped a baking sheet with parchment paper behind me. Let me grab that. Okay, so now I'm just going to take my pastry cutter or your knife, and we're just going to divide our circle in half, and then into thirds, or sixths, I guess. Okay, so we've got 6 beautifully shaped little triangular scones. And I alternate them and leave a little space because they will spread a little bit on your baking sheet. And then we're going to do the same thing with the rest of our scone dough. Okay, so once your scones are done, if they've warmed up at all, you might want to stick them in the freezer for about 30 minutes just so all the butter is nice and cold. Otherwise, you can go ahead and stick these in a 375-degree Fahrenheit oven for 18 to 22 minutes. Okay, so our chocolate scones have cooled, so now we're going to make our chocolate glaze to go on top. So it just takes 4 ingredients. We've just got some powdered sugar, some cocoa powder, 2 to 3 tablespoons of milk. So I'm gonna just add part of this right now. And then some vanilla extract. And grab a whisk and we're just going to whisk that together. Now you don't want your glaze too runny or it's just going to run right off. So you can save some of that milk, and if it needs to be a little bit thinner so you can drizzle it over, just add the rest of the milk. Okay, I can see this is starting to come together, but it's still pretty thick, so I'm gonna add a little bit more milk to this. All right, so you can see this just drizzles right off my whisk, but it's still a little bit thick. This is just how I like it. I didn't use quite all of that milk. So now we're going to drizzle it over our scones. Now you can just do this with your whisk, a spoon. You could actually transfer it to a piping bag if you want it to be really pretty. I think I'm just gonna use my spoon today. Okay, and you just grab this and just go in zigzags across the top of each of your scones. And this glaze will set up in about 20 to 30 minutes. Or, you know, you can just eat them right now with the glaze still wet. They're super delicious that way too. But if you want to save these for later or transport them, you want to let the glaze set all the way. This is my kind of decorating. It's really easy and rustic and casual. You don't have to worry about anything fancy or hard, and it still looks impressive. Okay. There we go, these scones are done. These smell amazing, so even though the glaze isn't totally set, I'm going to go ahead and take a bite right now. I think I'll go with this one. Okay, these are so good. They are triple chocolate. It's got a chocolate scone base with chocolate chips and that chocolate glaze on top. If you're a chocolate lover, these are the scones for you. I hope you guys liked this video. If you did, be sure to like and subscribe for more great videos just like this.